mandate is a penalty or a tax. Joining me now is Sean Spicer, Communications Director for the Republican National Committee. Sean, it's great to have you here, and we know we booked you to come on to talk about fundraising, which we are going to get to. But first, there is some news being made this morning. I want to get your reaction to something that Romney campaign advisor Eric Fernstrom said to our Chuck Todd on the Daily Rundown. Take a listen.
The governor does not believe the mandate is a tax. That's what you're saying.
The governor believes that what we put in place in Massachusetts was a penalty, and he disagrees with the court's ruling that the mandate was a tax. But again,
so he agrees with the president, but he agrees with the president that it is not, and he believes that you shouldn't call the tax penalty a tax. You should call it a penalty or a fee or a fine.
That's correct.
Sean, so does this not contradict what Republicans who've been hammering the president all weekend that this penalty is a tax? Isn't this an important pivot that Eric Fernstrom is announcing this morning about how Mitt Romney feels?
No, Mitt Romney has felt the same way he's always felt. One, on day one, he'll repeal all of Obamacare. Two, that he agreed with the dissent part of the Supreme Court because he thought the entire thing was unconstitutional. But, Thomas, the question that you really should be asking is, the President of the United States campaigned and said this wasn't going to be a tax. Then he sent his Solicitor General to the court to say, hey, in order to get around the Commerce Clause, call it a tax. Then when the court ruled, he said, wait, it's not a tax. I mean, the president has been the one that's been inconsistent from the get-go on this, and I think that's where the American people are going to recognize that this was a broken promise and that this president is continuing to say whatever fits his interest. But Governor Romney's been consistent that Obamacare is not something that is in the best interest of our economy or for health care. He would repeal it day one, and that he agreed with the dissent.
Well, Sean, when it comes to the fact, though, that the Affordable Care Act was based on what Mitt Romney was able to legislatively do, his greatest legislative accomplishment as governor of Massachusetts, and the fact that he conferred with the Heritage Foundation, who created, as he said, designed and crafted what we now call the connector. Also, the Romney 2009 op-ed in the USA Today said using tax penalties, or as we did, tax credits, and as others have proposed, encourages free riders to take responsibility for themselves rather than pass their medical costs on to others. So here again we have this morning with Eric Fernstrom coming out agreeing with the president, saying that this is a penalty and not a tax for those people that would be considered free riders. Is there a problem, though, with the larger message from Mitt Romney trying to shy away from Massachusetts health care in the national conversation about what the Affordable Health Care Act is?
No. I think what Governor Romney has always said is that he took a problem in Massachusetts and created a Massachusetts solution for it. What his state needed at the time, he worked with a Democratic legislature and delivered a solution that the people of Massachusetts enjoy today. But that same model, he's also said, doesn't work for California or Colorado or Florida. And as Republicans, we've always believed that in states' rights. So what works in one state isn't necessarily going to work in another, and definitely shouldn't be federalized. And Governor Romney has been 100% consistent that just because something worked in Massachusetts doesn't mean that you federalize it. In fact, that seems to be the biggest problem with the Democrats, is that they look at one idea and say, okay, well, we're going to model everyone on this, create a one-size-fits-all solution. And what the beauty of the United States is that each state can, whether it's an education or health care policy or what have you, transportation, can say, hey, we've got needs in our state that are unique. We're going to create a unique solution and put it in place. But by no means does that mean that you then create a national model and say, okay, everyone's got to live by this.
But isn't that something that Mitt Romney has discussed, about repeal and replace, something that has worked? And I do want to talk to you about the fundraising aspect of all of this, because Team Romney has reported that they've raised more than $6.5 million in online donations since this ruling came down. But are Republicans in danger of overplaying their hand, Sean, on the fact that Mitt Romney took to the podium there in Washington, D.C., and talked about repealing and replacing something that right now, while it's not in full effect, there are certain provisions that Americans are enjoying under the Affordable Health Care Act?
Sure. Well, first of all, to the fundraising aspect, in the first 36 hours after the ruling came down, we took in $5.5 million from 55,000 donors. Most of those people had never been involved in the campaign before. I think what it showed, Thomas, and this gets to your second point, is that the majority majority of Americans now believe that the court ruled it was constitutional and that the only way to overturn Obamacare is through the ballot box, electing Mitt Romney, who's made a commitment to repeal this day one. And people want to get involved in that. They realize that there is a clear choice in this election, whether we want government in the middle of our health care decisions or whether we want, and as the governor's talked about, the replace aspect is taking market-driven competitive forces to allow the system to put in place reforms that help drive down cost, help cover more people, and deliver better health care, and doesn't inhibit job creation as Obamacare does. So I think there is a big difference, as Speaker Boehner noted this week, of putting a 2,700-page bill that you pass in the middle of the night that the Speaker Pelosi made clear that no one was able to read before it passed, than taking a step-by-step common sense reform, market-oriented process that allows us to look at the problems, address them, and deliver better health care that at the same time helps our economy.
RNC Communications Director Sean Spicer. Sean, thanks for your time this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Thomas.
All right, so see you later. Wall